Okay, if you didn't save, be sure to give it a save here. We are starting page 24 in the final session here of the PPro 2022 review. So we're going to add what's called an adjustment layer next. If you've used Photoshop, you're familiar with what an adjustment layer is. An adjustment layer is a layer you can put above all other layers, and it affects all those layers below it. So you can do this particularly for color grading is kind of the biggest thing, but we create an adjustment layer that stores in our project panel. We drag it in, and it's a still thing, so it'll come in at 5 seconds, but we can make it as long as we want. And then we just drag effects onto the adjustment layer. So instead of like, if I had 3 clips on top of each other and I wanted all 3 of them to be black and white, instead of dragging a black and white to this one and this one and this one, I have one adjustment layer and I drag the black and white to the adjustment layer that's above those 3. And then it affects all of them. Very, very handy, particularly if you have something and you want to make it a little more cinematic, because there's some really cool color adjustments that are made in there. Now we're going to be looking at Lumetri. I do want to mention there is a Lumetri color panel over to the right. We haven't used it yet, but we are going to use it in this section. Lumetri color also in your effects has a set of presets. So Lumetri refers to color grading, and we're going to use that here. Now to do this, we need to make an adjustment layer first. So down here in your project panel, I can't see the new layer button. I have to scroll out to make sure I can get to new item. And then there's adjustment layer. Or if you can't see your buttons, you can also just go to file and then new and then adjustment layer. Either way gets you there. It says, hey, I'm going to make an adjustment layer that's the same size as your current sequence. Okay, cool. Hit OK. Now you're going to have in your project panel a little black box that just says adjustment layer. Okay. You can rename your adjustment layer. I'm just going to click underneath it where it says adjustment layer and call this BW for black and white, because that's what we're going to make this adjustment layer do. I do suggest that you name your adjustment layers, and you could put like adjust black and white or whatever, so you know the purpose of the adjustment layer. Although by itself, it actually does nothing. You have to drag it in and then put stuff on it for it to actually work. Now, side note while we're here, the new item button also can be used if you just need a black video, just like a black slide, or if you need a color slide. That's what color mat is. So if I just needed to have like a red background so I could put words on it, I could create a color mat and then choose red for the color, and then it would make that in here, and I could drag it in to use it. All right, so we've got our adjustment layer. We are going to put it at the very beginning of the panel. So let's zoom out where we can see the beginning. And then we're going to want this to go right to where the eyes close, which is about 13.5 seconds the second time. So like somewhere in there, 13, 17, I don't know. It's just a little bit while it'll stay in color, not for very long, okay? 13, 15, that's pretty good. I want the adjustment layer to end there, okay? So we're going to drag it in. And let's drag it to video 4, because we haven't used video 4. Now, notice I don't have a video 4. That's okay. All you have to do is drag in the blank space where video 4 would be if there was one, and it will just magically make a video 4. Look at that. Bam. Easy. Now I want this to last from the beginning up until this point, so I drug it there to snap it to the end. And then I'm just going to pull this back so it goes from the beginning to the point where he shuts his eyes. Okay? All right, very simple. We are going to drag the Lumetri preset in the effect panel that's called Monochrome Punch. So I'm going to go to Lumetri Presets, Monochrome Punch. Now there's different ones in here. If you make your effects panel bigger, if I scroll this out, check this out. It shows you what they look like, so you can actually see the different effects. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Those are hard to see, and you don't really know they're there unless you know they're there. Okay, so Monochrome Punch, I'm going to drag that and drop it onto the adjustment layer. Okay, onto the adjustment layer. Now, if I pull back, we can see it automatically made it black and white. So that worked pretty good. If you look in your effect controls at the left, you're going to see there is a whole list of these Lumetri things, but also we can use the Lumetri color panel over here. So it says, all right, we're on the BW adjustment layer and we already have it set to Monochrome Punch. Now what do you want to do? And so we have different options in here. One of the ones I want you to add is to add a vignette. A vignette's where you make it darker or lighter around the edges. So let's click on that to open that up. And if you go negative, it does one thing, and if you go positive, it does the other. So if we go up, it's going to make those edges lighter. If we go negative, it's going to make those edges darker. See the difference there? We want to make it darker or more imposing and depressing and sad at the beginning, so we're doing a negative amount here. And there is a midpoint, so you can make it darker even if you want to. I don't care, you know, how much you do here on these. You can kind of mess around with it. All right, so that's the vignette that we're adding. And again, you could change other things, but it's really already done nicely for us here. If you scroll through, you know, it's got a good dark kind of horror film vibe going on right here on this one. Okay, we're going to do one more change to this, but we're not going to use an adjustment layer. So let me unlock these other layers and let's go find the birds. So where are our birds? That's after the world is happy again. We're over here in birds. So this birds doesn't look so happy. It's kind of dreary and like, bleh. So we're going to use Lumetri color to make our birds prettier. So we don't have to do an adjustment layer for this because we're just going to do it straight on this actual clip. So over here on the right where it says birds, and I already have my Lumetri color panel pulled up, I'm going to make the sky bluer under basic correction. So temperature, if you make it warmer, it gets like golder. That's not what I want. That looks scary. Or if you go left, it's bluer. It's cooler, right? So we want it cooler because, you know, that's blue is prettier. And then you can increase the saturation as well. That's at the bottom of that section for basic correction, which makes the blue bluer. If you go the other way, you'll make it black and white eventually. But we're trying to make things lively here. So you could technically go through, you know, if you wanted your flowers to be, they're already pretty bright, but like if you wanted to, you know, you could click on your flowers and you could be like, yeah, let's make them even oranger, you know, or whatever. You could pull that temperature up on there. Or you could make it more saturated and it's like super yellow now or whatever. Now remember, anything that you add on your Lumetri color is going to actually add over here on your panel, your effects control panel, and you can turn it off and see like before and after. So that one was already pretty yellow, so I don't really need to do that one, but it doesn't hurt anything. So anyway, you can feel free to experiment with any of your clips if you want to make them richer in tone, you know, or whatever. You could even go to that very last one, him with his arms. That one's a little dreary looking, so you could make some changes to that as well. And again, I like the basic correction, but there's also others over here. So like there's creative ones and they have looks, which are supposed to be like film looks and things. So like film noir, there's, I don't know, red wave. Oh, that's a black and white one. So that's not what I want. I'm just going to press Control Z and undo. But anyway, there's lots of different ones that are built in here that you can use under creative. Or you can just adjust them yourself, add more vibrance or, you know, sharpen it or whatever. I like basic correction. It's just easier. You know, if I want to add more contrast, if I want to bring the highlights up, if I want to bring the whites up, you know, you can just adjust those that way, like so. Okay, so that's Lumetri color. And again, any changes you make are going to be affected to that in the effects control panel. And that's pretty much it for page 24. In our next session, we're going to get into how do we get this thing out of Premiere so we can use it or upload it to YouTube.